I want to say this
I
was
went
10
during
to
spring break.
10 to 5.
Yeah.
It's hard to find.
And we made it back to Altoona,
Yeah,
to my house,
21.
and back to the airport
Yeah.
by 5:30. Luggage closed,
No real
Wow.
nightlife at that
and we
point.
had to be on
Yeah.
the plane at 10:12.
I called to order the meeting of the Southeast Polk Board of Education. It is July 14th, 2022 at 5:30 PM. Karen, can I get roll call, please?
Chad,
Here.
Lori,
Here.
Bridget, Rick,
Here.
Whitney,
Here.
Brett,
Here.
Tom,
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. Letter B, agenda adoption. Dr. Lupnick, are there any changes to the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
Thank you. Karen?
Lori,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes. All right, letter C, district vision and mission. Would anyone like to read that tonight?
Thank you.
Thank you, Brett.
Southeast Polk Community School District will learn, lead, live, success for college, career, and civic life, and engage all students in learning a challenging curriculum delivered through quality instruction.
Thank you. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to our public comments portion of the meeting. I'm just going to read our open forum guidelines here. The board recognizes the value of public observation and hearing from individuals on school district matters. It is also important that the board be able to conduct its meeting in an orderly and efficient manner, free from outside interference. Citizens wishing to address the board will need to complete a public comments card prior to the meeting and give it to the superintendent. The public comments cards are located on a table at the entrance of the meeting. Speakers will normally be limited to 3 minutes for an individual and 5 minutes for an individual that is representing a group. However, these time limits may be modified if pressure of business or other circumstances dictate. The board president will recognize individuals to make their comments at the appropriate time during public comment. When addressing the board, state your name and group name, if applicable, address, city, and agenda item to be addressed. During public comment, the role of the board is to listen. Therefore, board members will only receive comments and will not respond to questions or otherwise engage in discussion with speakers. Speakers who make comments are responsible for their own statements and may be subject to legal action for those which are threatening or defamatory in nature. It is expected that speakers will address the board and each other with civility. Aside from recognized speakers during public comment, the role of the public is limited to observing the proceedings of the board. Public observation does not include participation. The board has a significant interest in maintaining the decorum of its meetings. Any individual who does not abide by these rules or otherwise disrupts the meeting may be asked to leave and/or referred to law enforcement. All right. Our first public comment, and I believe these are together, Mike Morrison and Phyllis Murphy. Is that correct? Please state your name and address.
Phyllis Murphy, 607 4th Street Southeast in Altoona. And I'm here with Mike Morrison. And we're here on behalf of the Tony Mapu Scholarship Foundation. That is an inaugural event on October 8th. And this is for a $10,000 scholarship. And Tony was here in, his sister lived with us in 1979. And then when Tony came back to finish a senior in high school, he also lived with us. And I will say that he was the most moral, upstanding, young man that you would ever be proud to be called your son. And this scholarship is a little bit different because it is decided on integrity, character. It's not necessarily your ABCs. If you get whatever your grade point is, you don't have to be an athlete, but this will be chosen by the designated people. There is and they are Polynesian, and they live in Utah, and they are just some of the finest people you'd ever known. And so we are having a golf tournament and a luau that is authentic. They're all coming and they make all their own clothes and everything like that. So we just wanted to give you a chance to look at this. And I'm going to turn this over to Mike because he knows more about Tony because he played football with him. Go ahead.
I'm Mike Morrison, and I live at 606 Northeast Whitetail Drive in Ankeny. I am a 1983 graduate of Southeast Polk. My parents were Ram fans all the way. And I was a couple of years younger than Tony Mapu, but he lost his life to a drunk driver about October of 1980. And 42 years later now, we've put together, myself and several people from the community here and on the West Coast have put together a foundation to honor the memory of Tony Mapu and to pay it forward for the inspiration and the value that Tony was to our community. And when that accident happened, our community was really shocked and to the core. And too many years went by before we were able to put together a foundation to help young people be inspired to succeed and to learn how to help other people beyond themselves to be successful. So that's what October 8th of this year, we will have the inaugural Tony Mapu Memorial Foundation golf fundraiser with a luau and a dinner. And we expect that that will raise funds to distribute to a candidate that would be selfless, honest, trustworthy, diligent, inquisitive, humble, motivated, relentless, empathetic, kind, creative, loyal, forgiving, and thoughtful. So we would encourage the community to help us with that any way they can and to just spread the information that we're excited to do that in their memory. So thank you for hearing me.
Thank you.
All right, next up we have Nicole Pike.
My name is Nicole Pike and I live at 313 10th Street Northwest in Altoona, Iowa. And I am representing, again, LGBTQ of the community. I have submitted a formal complaint of discrimination of LGBTQ students and families by a Southeast Polk board member to the district's assistant superintendent, as well as to the Office of Civil Rights. Unfortunately, we have a board member who continues to claim to have faithfully, fairly, and equitably upheld their oath of office and represented the students and families in the Southeast Polk School District, claiming false accusations are being made under social and political bias against her while openly and publicly expressing bigotry and prejudice through her own social and political bias against LGBTQ across multiple platforms, including Facebook, her own podcasts, and other guest spots on other podcasts. She claims to want to be a voice of underrepresented students and combat bullying while bullying and trying to prevent our LGBTQ from being represented and feeling welcome in our schools and in our district. The board's code of ethics 204-00 reads, board members' actions, verbal and nonverbal, reflect the attitude and the beliefs of the school district. Therefore, board members must conduct themselves professionally and in a manner fitting to their position. Each board member will follow the code of ethics stated in that policy. The Board of Directors Policy 202-05, individual authority reads, individual board members alone have no authority to make decisions or take action to affect the management of the school district. Without the consent of the board, an individual board member has no authority to act on behalf of the district or the school board. In January, this board member attempted to rally other district community members on an Altoona, Iowa Republicans Facebook page, a partisan political Facebook page, to review 25 questionable books across our district to have them reported and subsequently banned. Nearly all those books were targeted to LGBTQ. This person is concerned with targeting 25 books out of thousands of books across our district, yet claims to not be expressing bias, bigotry, or prejudice. In May, on a podcast called Real Talk With, she made comments about boys wearing dresses and said that this was her quote, I have 23 inappropriate books in my library that I can't get out of my library, and I'm a school board member. In April, she posted on a podcast of her own titled DEI, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion is Affirmative Action. How can someone faithfully, fairly, and equitably uphold their oath of office if they don't support these things? They chose to kick off Pride Month by denouncing pride as a sin. Fireworks in honor of Pride Month depict biblical story of God destroying Sodom
Nicole.
and Gomorrah with sulfur and fire,
Your
commenting,
time is up. If you can wrap it up, please.
I don't like being here and doing these things, but I do these things for my daughter and for other in the community who are being ostracized and prejudiced and bullied by a member of the public office that is supposed to support her and represent her. And I ask that other community members, adults, not engage in this bullying behavior and not engage in prejudice, and to help us stand and set an example, be curious, not judgmental, and to help create a non-toxic, non-threatening, non-dangerous environment for our students to thrive in and to feel welcome in
Thank you.
and loved. Thank you.
All right. Next, we have Jennifer Hullett, sorry.
All right, my name is Jennifer Hullett and I live at 8272 Northeast 38th Avenue here in Altoona. Is it okay if I start now? All right, my daughter goes to Mitchellville Elementary. I feel very blessed to have my daughter be part of the Ville. There has never been a time that I have felt as if the staff have been anything other than wonderful when communicating with us as parents and as a community. I feel that my daughter's safety and education are in excellent hands there. When I voted for school board members last year, I picked the ones that would help foster the atmosphere of inclusivity and good communication that we have at Mitchellville. People who said that they would not be afraid of hard conversations and that diversity and different opinions would be welcomed so that we could have these conversations together. That's why I was very confused when a fellow parent wondered during a recent conversation if the books from the Mitchellville Library that were on a list of questionable books released by the school board had been removed from the library. I had not heard of this list, so I looked on the school board website. I looked on the school board Facebook page. I looked on the Mitchellville school page. I looked on the Parents of Southeast Polk page. I could not find this list. The reason I could not find it is because it was posted exclusively on the Altoona, Iowa Republicans Facebook page months ago. Upon viewing the post and aforementioned book list, I realized that this post was not made by the entire school board, although I could see how my friend would be confused. The poster is a school board member, so any communication requesting parental opinions on school library books could be viewed as communication from the school board as a whole. This could also be viewed as a violation of policy 202-05, individual authority, which states individual board members alone have no authority to make decisions or take actions to affect the management of the school district. This list concerns me for several reasons. I voted for this person. This person promised open decision-making and communication. This is not that. This person promised the importance of parents having a voice. This is not that. This is the opposite of that. You cannot promise inclusivity when excluding so many people from the conversation. The school board is supposed to be nonpartisan, and I voted as such. You do not represent red people or blue people here. You represent all of the students and parents of this district, and you need to act accordingly. To do otherwise is in violation of policy 204-00, the Code of Ethics, particularly Part 1, Number 5. I will not use the school district or any part of the school district program for my own personal advantage or for the advantage of my friends or supporters. And Part 2, Number 5, in meeting my responsibility to my school district community, I will represent the entire school district rather than the individual electors, patrons, or groups. So tonight, I implore the entire board, hold yourselves and each other accountable for the things that you say, because those of us who voted for you will hold you accountable. Your actions speak louder than your words. And when you do the opposite of what you say you will do not be surprised when you lose the trust of the community and the people who got you here, because you've lost mine. Thank you.
All right, next is Cassie, is it Lehman? Lehman, thank you.
Hi, I'm Cassie Lehman. My address is 412 25th Avenue Southwest, Altoona, Iowa. When I stood before you in November, I remember being surprised who listened and who took action. I was also surprised by who I felt dismissed me and my son's situation. I learned a lesson that day. We can disagree and still work together, but only when we treat each other with love and respect. I'm still grateful for the action taken by our superintendent and the board towards student safety. Please listen with that same openness as I share tonight. In 13 days, it will have been 9 years since I got a text that changed everything in my world. AJ hung himself. AJ Betts was a beautiful, amazing Southeast Polk student. He was my son's best friend. He lived at our house every weekend. He called me mom. His story is well known, and his mom's made it nationally known. We all know he was bullied. They called him Gay Jay. Was that the only thing? I have no way of knowing. I'm not here to tell his story tonight, though. I'm here to share my boys' stories. My oldest dropped out of show choir. I'd find him at the cemetery at all hours of the day and night. 3 years later, my son's girlfriend, Riley, another of AJ's inner circle, copied his suicide. She had graduated early, so her suicide didn't count in Southeast Polk's high school statistics. My oldest son, Noah, is an amazing person, but he has serious trust issues. I'm not sure if he'll ever develop close relationships. I'm not sure if he'll ever have a wife, have children. I sought out help for him. I had him with great counselors. And Amy Doherty, I have to give a shout out to that woman, hands down the most amazing school counselor anywhere. And she deserves to be recognized. It affects my other children too, including the 12-year-old I came here about in November. Why do I share this? Because our behavior and our attitudes have far-reaching effects on others. As a teacher for another district, I love and respect all of my students, even those I disagree with on personal and moral issues. My love and respect will go farther than any negativity, and honestly, I would expect to be fired if I were disrespectful or biased to a family or a student. I hold myself to a higher standard. As a school board, you are held to an even higher standard. You determine the values and the behavior of our entire school district, staff, students, and our community, our parents. It's your job to respect and support all Southeast Polk families.
All right, you're
told-
at time. You wrap
Can I wrap it
please?
up real quick?
Please, thank you.
I just have a couple sentences. I told the superintendent that we weren't moving after last fall's incident. This is my community and we need to do better and be better. Our community and families have been over-traumatized. This is not an issue we should still be dealing with 9 years after AJ died. We all need to be better.
that ends the public comments portion of our meeting. Onto the letter F consent agenda. Can I have a motion, please?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions? All right, Karen?
Rick,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
All right, on to old new business confirmation of next meeting, August 4th and the 18th.
Motion to approve.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Karen?
Whitney,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
All right, FY 23 legislative priorities.
Motion to approve legislative priorities.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion about the priorities? So we have the top four, and this is based off of our kind of collective votes, so to speak. One was mental health, 2 supplemental state aid, 3 teacher recruitment and development, and 4 school safety. So discussion around those.
I think they're great. So I'm glad that we all came together and decided on these top 4.
Karen?
Brett,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
All right, letter C, Transportation Department School Bus GPS Contracts. Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second. I don't care.
Okay, Lori or Whitney, take your choice. Pick your pick. Any discussion or questions about this contract? I did actually have one. I was looking through. It's an upgrading from 3G to 4G. Is that correct, or are we actually moving from 4G to 5G?
The system will be a 4G system with the capabilities of moving and migrating to 5G when it becomes more popular in some of the rural areas. Otherwise, we'd have a gap in services if we went full right now.
Okay,
So,
so it would support both.
yes.
But the
it will.
the previous 3G.
Is gone.
It's gone.
It's sunsetted and it's causing a lot of communication issues. So.
Okay. Will this be implemented for this school year then? This upcoming school
The
year?
goal will be to try to get it involved at the beginning of school. It depends on how fast we can get the product and have them come and install it. Of course, this is all computer and computer chip stuff is causing delays here and there. So our goal is that though, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I would, if we have any delays or anything, I'll make sure I talk to Dirk about it.
And Dan, before you, so the way I read it, this doesn't change the Here Comes the Bus app. It's gonna,
No, this is nothing to do with changing
this is just,
anything. It's just upgrading the
Service.
software so we continue a better service than what we've had. We've had a lot of downtime over the last year. It's just been steadily sloping down. So
and do you think this was some of the issue with, and I don't think we had a lot of issues with Here Comes the Bus app, but I know we had a few where people were missing it by whatever, I mean.
yeah,
just-
there was some buses that we just didn't, they wouldn't work anymore because they weren't communicating with the
okay.
satellites
this
because of the
was kind of-
3G. So it wouldn't get pushed out to parents as well as what it should. So,
Okay, good. Thank you.
All right, Karen?
Tom,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Okay, on to letter D, athletic training services renewal.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Lori can have it.
Who was first?
Yeah.
Lori can have it. She's been here longer.
Whatever.
All right, any questions on the athletic training services renewal?
I think we're fortunate to have it.
Karen?
Chad,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
All right, letter E, RTL return to learn plan. I get a motion to approve? Or a
Motion to approve.
To second it.
Is there anything you wanted to?
Yeah, just real quick, this is required by code for us to update every 6 months as part of state and federal programs, things like the ESSER funding. We have to have an updated thing in order to be able to accept those funds. And you've had a chance to look at this. It's pretty straightforward and basic, taking what we've learned along the way and incorporate that into our regular operations.
Any discussion? All right, Karen?
Lori,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
Whitney,
Yes.
Brett,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Chad,
Yes. All right, on to topics for discussion. Letter A, superintendent's report.
Thank you. Several pieces of good news here to start with. A couple of different grants. We were notified almost 2 weeks ago now that by the Department of Ed that we will receive a health leadership grant. This will allow us to expand the training for our mental health first aid with our staff. And we'll also be able to expand some other staff PD in the health and mental health range. We also received a $10,000 grant from the Pilot Corporation as part of their upgrade to the Flying J truck stop, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word anymore, travel stop. And that will be used towards our elementary robotics program. If you think of back at our visit at 4 Mile, you got to interact with some of those things and expanding that. So that's great news. I'm not going to completely steal Mr. Pettit's thunder. He'll be back in a month or so to talk in more detail. But we do have an early look at our advanced placement scores. And I'll just say this, they're the best we've ever had. And he'll be able to expand on that and give more detail. So that's exciting news. Probably have seen this is old news by now, but we did have an alum that was the Jeopardy winner. Hallie Ryard, daughter of one of our high school teachers, was the champion on the television show Jeopardy a few weeks ago. So that's kind of a cool thing. And I don't know a name, and I don't even know exactly what I'm talking about, but apparently we also had another alum on the show House Hunters out there as well. Somebody can maybe fill us in on that and give us the details, but just kind of interesting little tidbits there. Summer activities. The girls qualified for the state tournament. They'll play Valley on Monday at 11:30 in Fort Dodge in the first round of the state tournament. So that's exciting. Kind of in that realm, we also had two athletes named as USA Today Iowa High School Players of the Year. In football, Jackson Daly was named the Offensive Player of the Year, and Xavier Wampa was named the Defensive Player of the Year. So that's quite an honor. And I also wanted to highlight the Summer Energy Report. We had Centennial, Clay, Delaware, 4 Mile, Mitchellville, and Reynolds all have perfect scores on the walkthrough, and the high school had their best score ever. Not quite perfect, but the best that they've done. So that's good news as we continue to focus on different ways to save money, especially as energy costs are where they are right now. So from a meeting standpoint, this month was heavy on safety and construction. I'll say that, and planning for next year. So.
On the energy, at some point, and I'm not sure she'll be ready for it, if she's been in there long enough, or if she can put that stuff, how long it takes to put it together. You think Kathy would be able to give us a little update on how much we are saving and have saved over the, I don't think we've done it for a couple of years or something.
Together. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yep.
I don't think it needs to be next month or anything, but I guess how, if it's easy for her to put that stuff
You
together.
bet.
Okay, I guess onto ISASP data. Dr. Latham.
Good evening, board. As we are in the summer months, I'm here this evening to take a look at our summative data review, kind of look back in a big picture at the data results from this last year and start to generate some actions for how we can provide additional support moving into the 22-23 school year. So this is our summative data review. We have formative data points that we look at all across the school year, but at the end of the year, we do look at some summative pieces from a big picture lens to look at growth, to look at achievement, and to look at celebrations and areas for growth. So these are some of the fancy assessments that we look at. I'll get into detail. They are all acronymed, of course. We have ISASP, which is the overall skills assessment. FAST is an early literacy assessment, and A reading is a literacy assessment, and A math, obviously, is a math assessment. So I'm going to start with ISASP, and this is Iowa's state assessment of student progress. This is given once each spring to students in grades 3 through 8. We give an ELA section that includes reading, writing, and language. There's a math section, and there is a science section, and that is given to grades 5, 8, and 10. It is an online assessment. It's available paper, pencil, and it's also available online. This is only the third time that the test has been given at the state of Iowa. It is a state assessment, and this is the first year that we went fully online. We still have some students who have IEPs who have written into their IEP to be paper pencil, but everything else was online. This was also the first year that the state administered it in an adaptive format. Just the English language arts section was adaptive, meaning that the questions a student gets are relative to how they answer questions. So it might bump them up, or it might put some foundational questions in place. What we have available to us right now are on-demand reports. The published reports, which will have more of that adaptive information, have not been released yet. So this is just a first glimpse and a first glance at those on-demand reports. So the first look that we're going to take is in comparison from 2021 to 2022. And we look at it through a few different lenses. The first lens is what we will call trend data, and that is grade level trends. So this is looking at what it looks like in 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, etc. The ELA score in the on-demand report is reading, writing, and language combined. When we get the published reports, we'll be able to break those apart, but this particular on-demand report just has one score. So you can see some of the growth there. What's encouraging to me there as we move through the pandemic is our 3rd grade had a really nice bounce back. And we also had a nice bounce back at grade 7. And then we had some grades that were stable, some that went up a little bit, some that went down a little bit. And again, we will analyze that data and generate action plans. Cohort data, and this is the first year we've been able to get legitimate cohort data, and I'll get into a little bit of the history of ISASP, but this would be the same kids. So 3rd graders, and now when they were 4th graders, what did their score look like in 3rd grade? What did their score look like in 4th grade? So this is following kids rather than grade levels. And again, you can see the growth from 3rd to 4th in the early literacy. And again, we had some areas with some nice growth, and then some areas where we saw some decline. So again, those will be the areas that we'll target and begin to put some actions in place. Again, it is encouraging. You'll see some early literacy data here in a little bit. Had some big concerns with the school closure on our youngest learners and their developmental growth, and we're seeing some nice bounce back in regards to that. Same format for math. You can see it's a little I would say flatter in math. There aren't as many ups and downs as we saw in ELA, but you can see the trend data for the grade levels. Excuse me. And then you can see the cohort data. And again, we continue to look at transition grades and course grades as we move through and look at that data. You can ask questions at any time. Oops, science, because I want to show you one more layer. So science, again, is only given at 5th, 8th, and 10th. The science has not been fully developed in the assessment that has been given, and it is required to be given at 1 grade level per elementary, middle, and high. So the state chose 5, 8, and 10. I said 11, didn't I? 5, 8, and 10. And so at this time, it's only given at 3 levels. And the goal on the part of the state is to expand that to more grade levels. So I'll open it up to questions at any time, but I do want to lay a little history on the table, which will either be interesting or not. I'll let you decide. But and when we look at Iowa assessments, I think you might remember them as Iowa Test of Basic Skills. And those started in 1935. Probably should have done a quiz and said, you know, when did those start? And those tested general skills, and they were given across the United States. Almost every student in the United States took the ITBS. And it wasn't necessarily grade level skills. If I was a 3rd grader, I might start at the 2nd grade level and go to 4th grade. And it could kind of rank order where I was in those general skills. So it was very widely used. In 2011, it changed to Iowa assessments. And then it was written to align to the Iowa core. So prior to that, it was not aligned to the core, still a norm reference test. So you still might have, as a 4th grader, some 3rd grade items, some 4th grade items, some 5th grade items on your assessment. Then in 2019, it completely changed. It changed then to the current ISASP that we have. It was for the first time a grade level test. So only items from the grade level. If I'm a 6th grader, there's only 6th grade items on that particular assessment. There were new subtests, including writing. Writing previously had not been assessed, and it included online administration. So you can see the second column is really just about the ISASP. So 2 unusual things happened unplanned pretty much at the same time. So the Iowa assessment hadn't changed very much since 1935. And contrary to what my children would tell you, I haven't been teaching since 1935, but I am entering my 40th year and have never seen anything like we've seen the last 2 years, never experienced anything close to that. So we have a brand new test for the very first time. We give it once and then we have a school closure. So it's going to be a while before we get some good longitudinal data to look at as a result of that. So you can see we gave it for the first time. Southeast Polk that first year, secondary took it online, but the writing section, people took paper pencil. In 2020, the Iowa schools were closed in March and ISASP was not administered at all statewide. In 2021, that was our second administration, and we had the varying pathways that year. And we took it online and we did the writing portion paper pencil at the elementary grades. Then, as I said earlier, this was our 3rd administration. First year, we took it all online. One of the reasons we were moving to all online is because the adaptive format is only available in the online assessment. It is not available in the paper pencil, which is a fixed format. The adaptive assessment gives you more precision, particularly for the students who are maybe below grade level or well above grade level. And so we wanted to move to that online format. So it does skew our longitudinal data. Having said that, there's something we can certainly learn from looking at it from 2019 and then skipping a year and looking at these last 2 years. So these 2 slides here really can't show you trend data yet from 2019 until because of the skip year. But you can see the grade level data. This is ELA. So the blue bar is 2019. You can see the 2021, 2022. Again, we're not quite that well. In some cases, we're above where we were in 2019. In other cases, we're not quite there, but we're bouncing back. And in other cases, we've seen some decline and we'll need to dig in and address those issues. You can see that for math. And you can see that for science. So I'm going to go into the other assessments. Do you want to ask questions about ISAS before I do that, or do you want to wait till the end? Rick?
I'm just making a statement. I'm really glad that we as a district are having our elementary kids actually at the elementary kid level use paper and pencil and doing writing.
Mhm.
I'm fearful that they're getting to learn how to type with their thumbs and typing on screens, but I worry about their handwriting. I worry about their spelling. I worry about, they rely on autocorrect too much.
Sure.
So I'm really glad we're doing the hands-on.
And one thing I'll
Yeah.
mention too, that since that came into be, it previously started keyboarding at 3rd grade.
Right.
And we've now dropped that to 2nd grade so that we can start to determine that. There's also some text to speech and speech to text functions there for IEP
Right.
students so that we can translate that as well.
Yeah,
So,
I just worry that skill's gonna go away
Yeah.
and maybe never come back. That's just a worry.
we did get a little feedback that some of them had trouble reading some of the assessments. So,
Yeah.
but if you've taught the younger grades, you learn to
Yeah.
create a story out of those marks. But yes, thank you. That's a good point.
I'll ask a question.
Sure.
So, I mean, as you look at the ISAS data, obviously there's a gap in there where we're missing a year. It's a new test. We're still, like you said, it takes a while to get that longitudinal data. But I guess from what you're seeing so far at this level of aggregation, are there areas in particular that you're like, as soon as we get access, we're jumping into that, like areas of probably primarily concern? I mean, there's some celebration points in there,
Sure.
but there's, I mean, I looked at some of the math,
Right.
particularly the high school math that looks kind of like
Yeah,
this in
yeah.
some areas. So
I'm going to skip ahead just because this relates to ISAS more than the others. But when we look at our next steps, these are kind of the big areas that we're looking, starting big and funneling down. But by next Tuesday, we will have met with all the administrators and working on our school improvement plan template, starting to set goals for the upcoming year using the data that we have collected. Then we have some practices that when we look at that data district-wide, there are some things that we need to put into place district-wide. And then there's some target areas for us to address. So we have our school improvement goals with our plans, with our goals, strategies, and actions. We have our district-wide practices, which are related to the standards, writing to learn. As you said, Rick, we'd like to get more writing going on. Inclusion, making sure that we're meeting the needs of all of our learners. Renewing our focus on instruction and professional development, which has been a challenge the last couple of years. And then really maximizing on the wonderful teacher leadership and coaching structure that we have. Then on the target areas where we might see an area in math, we're actually digging in much deeper. We're looking at the domains that are being covered on that test. We're looking at our scope and sequence and making sure that we don't have any curriculum gaps and addressing some of those areas. So we start from the big to those target areas where we dig in pretty deeply and analyze our curriculum, our sequence, and our units of study.
So with that, I mean, are you at this point, do you have particular areas of focus within that data that you're going to look at all of it?
Yes.
Obviously.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, one of the things that we've particularly looked at math is the blueprints from the assessments. And again, it's an integrated math piece and we're broken down by algebra 1, geometry, algebra 2. So we're taking a look at the skills that are taught and the time of year that they're taught. And yeah, we're digging in pretty tight.
Okay.
And then of course, looking at more formative data along the way to make sure that we're catching things as we go to be able to support students in their work. So we'll get more precise from the district level to the grade level teams as we go through. But yeah, we've been doing an analysis with the math. And with, where am I? Fifth grade literacy. As kids transition to 6, that's another area that we're looking at our curriculum units and our scope and sequence.
Mhm.
I'm going to add a layer in terms of looking at, this is looking at grades 3 through 8. This is some of our earlier grade level data. So we have our early literacy, our literacy and our math data. These are given 3 times a year to students in kindergarten through 8th grade. What I'm reporting here is the end of the year data, so the summative piece, but we look at this data all the way across the year. So we have early literacy data that's given around phonemic awareness and phonics in kindergarten and 1st grade. We have CBM, which is a curriculum-based measure, which is fluency, words per minute. A reading and A math are both online assessments. A reading measures vocabulary and comprehension. A math measures computation and problem solving. I should mention that kindergarten does not take A math until the winter, so they take it 2 times a year, and the other grades take it the remaining time. I wanted to add that in A reading, they are making the 9th grade assessment available next year, and I visited with Mr. Pettit, and we will be administering that at 9th grade as well, just to give us more frequent looks along the way so we can make adjustments as we go through. So again, this is end of the year, even though we look at it 3 times a year. I'm showing you the summative data. So the 2021 column shows end of the year data in 2021, and then end of the year data in 2022. And again, at those foundational levels where they missed, you know, we were thinking that students in 2nd grade, this is the first full year of school they've had. So the stamina, they didn't want to see one more test at the end of the year. They were tired. But that was, we kind of had that realization, this is their first full year of school. So you can see some of that data there, and you're starting to see rebounds and growth in those grade levels. And then you can see what that looks like for 4th through 8th grade. Again, A math is just given through 5th grade, and you can see the A reading through 8th grade. And I will say we're not the only ones struggling a little bit to get back on our feet. Look at our kindergarten data compared to the state. Kudos to our teachers who are working with kids. And I know that they wouldn't have been impacted by the pandemic, but I can tell you that my 4-year-old granddaughter who didn't get out of the house much for a couple of years, it's, you know, they didn't get the experiences and things like that. And our teachers are just really strongly building those foundations for our kids to continue to be successful, even though there was some gaps and some interrupted schooling. So I think our teachers and our teacher teams should be very proud of the work that they're doing there in very challenging times. So our next steps, I know I jumped ahead a little bit, but we will do a deeper study of the data. And, you know, I think we've come here before and said, you know, state averages are nice, but we're better than that. So we're always going to be beyond that. But we're in a very unique situation. And so having that state context is important. So it will be interesting to get the state data that has not yet been published, but we know what it looks like here at Southeast Polk through unprecedented times. It will be interesting to create a context with state data to see what that looks like. And that might help us further target some of those areas, or even learn from others who are making, surpassing that, and how can we learn from each other and put those things into place. When we do get the published reports, we get domain data. So right now we just get an ELA score. When we get the published reports, we'll get 3 domain scores for reading, 5 domain scores for language and writing, and 4 domain scores for writing. So it won't just be 72. We'll get to see where the strengths and challenges are at a deeper level. The math, it's the mathematical practices. It's not the same for each grade level, but there's some different domains that we can dig into to target some of those areas a little bit more. So when we get that, it will help us dig in a little bit more precisely. That overall number is a little mystifying, but the more data we get back, the more we can drill down and make some decisions. And again, continue to look for trends and patterns. They're going to take a while to emerge, but we've got some that will get us started. And there's some places that we know we need to get to work and really dig in. And then subgroup data, I typically don't share that the first time I bring the data. I just bring the overall. And I could bring pages and pages and pages of data, and that would be very exciting because I like that. But I guess what I want to wait for either today or between now and the next meeting, what questions do you have about the data? And are there certain subgroups you'd like to take a look at? We typically take a look at free and reduced, non-free and reduced. We typically take a look at IEP, non-IEP, and our English learners. But are there some other areas you'd like to dig into a little bit more? We study all the data to see if there's any gender differences and things as we go forward. But as a board, what questions do you have? And then how can the data help answer those questions?
I'm assuming that our gap between our free and reduced and our general has expanded, widened versus gotten closer together.
We've done a nice job of narrowing that, and it did start to widen again through COVID. So that's something that we will continue to watch. COVID had an impact on our more vulnerable learners. So we saw that gap, I would say, more with English learners and IEP, but we also saw it with free and reduced.
But one of our goals possibly is still to keep working on that, narrowing that gap.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
And that will be, and so maybe I can bring those big
Yeah.
areas back and we
Yeah.
can take a look and set some gap goals with that.
That'd be
Okay.
good.
Okay. So again, start from the big lens, and we will continue to narrow that focus. The more precision we can get around the data, the more precise we can create an action to help address that. Again, we know there's some district-wide practices that we can put in place that will improve all the work that we're doing, and then targeting by content area as well as by grade level and by subgroup area as we move forward as well. So I wanted to close and share that we took a team of over 50 educators. It was very fun. It's first face-to-face PD I've had in over 2 years. And we went to Cedar Falls for 2 days, and we went to a session called Connecting the Dots. And it really was about school improvement. It was about equity. It was about teacher leadership. It was about coaching, and how we have those things in place, but how do we connect those to get maximum to maximize our impact on student learning, which is our goal. And so they really hit the idea of collective teacher efficacy. I think through COVID, we've all felt, I don't know if we've all, I know I have felt a little loss of autonomy. Things that I used to have control over just kind of went out the window. So collective teacher efficacy really is that belief that even though we're in challenging times, and even though students have had interrupted schooling, and maybe they might be in a situation where a parent has lost a job, or they've had to move, or they've had to do different things, that belief that we can overcome those challenges has one of the largest research effect sizes that exists. So building that collective teacher efficacy and that belief and that expectation that we can do that By no means do I want to discount all the other factors. When you look at the context of this research study and the impacts, parental involvement, community involvement have very positive effects. But we know that there are challenges exist. We know that our kids come to us from different levels of language, different levels of income, different structures. And no matter what those differences are, collectively together, everyone, we can make that impact to help our students succeed. So we really want to invest in that at that conference. They encourage us to invest in that. We know it has a high impact, and we know that that confidence and belief will help all of our students be successful. So I will be back in August with a more precise look at the data. I wish I could tell you when we're going to have the domain data and the state data. I can't, but hopefully we'll start to get that data soon, and we can start to make more precise plans to support our students moving forward.
Have we been getting the data faster than like the first year? It seemed like it took forever to get data back.
Individual data, if they take it online, we get it back pretty quickly. But to get it finalized and certified and into those domains, it was October, November. Like parents, I don't think got the parent reports until November last year. So I'm hoping it's sooner than that. But again, it's a new test. It's in its infancy. I'm sure they're still working some things out. So, but we haven't received any timelines for what that will look like from the state as of this time.
Joan, I just wanted to thank you for explaining that last slide by stating that, you know, you're not discounting the parents or the community. So sometimes when things are in writing,
yes,
they give one story. So
Yeah.
thank you for your explanation on that, because parents are very important. Yeah.
And it was, you're right, it was without the context, and it truly is, it always has been our belief that it takes a village, but through the challenges that we've had, each and every one of us are an important part for all of our students, and we appreciate that.
Connecting the dots is a good segue, but so like what's our concrete plan? Like, what are we doing for our teachers? Because we're a month and a half away from start, right? So like what tools or what are we doing? What do we have planned, you know, I mean, to start off, kick off the school year and kind of get this going?
Yeah.
So I know we've had like a year and a half of like analyzing data, and the data is great and getting it in and stuff, but I mean, we don't have time to, you know, I mean, kind of like wade through and kind of pinpoint, right? Because they've kind of missed, I wouldn't say missed a year, but we kind of did what we could last year, right?
Sure.
As far as trying to catch up. And I mean, things are not easy on parents and families and stuff
Right.
now. And it looks like for the foreseeable future, they're not going to be.
Exactly.
So we've moved into a different phase of difficult home life and difficult situations. So I don't know. I think it's a month and a half away. I'm kind of thinking, looking, going, okay, what tools are we giving our teachers, or what are we doing to kind of attack this? Like, what
And I'll
can we do
come back
now?
with more detail, but I think the professional learning piece of that is going to be huge. So we do have our professional learning, the big pieces planned out for the upcoming year, and they match our data goals. And when we left the school year last year, we saw a need to kind of return to that precise data team foundation. So we are working on data team templates so that we can bring the data in at the teams. And part of that template is then what actions will we generate. It gets down to the kid level. Which student is going to get the core instruction, which student's going to get the core plus the additional intervention. So we started to work on that in the spring. And then as we look at school improvement plans coming in and see what each building is focusing on, in the fall, we'll be launching Southeast Polk University, which is an online on-demand professional development platform that we have created. Wanted to have it in place 2 years ago, got a little bit sidelined, but we'll have our launch in the fall so that teacher teams can differentiate their professional learning based on where they are in their learning and based on where the kids are with what their needs are. So again, working on that multi-tiered systems of support, but really focusing on tier one, that core instruction piece. You know, it used to be the fewer kids that fall out of core, then the more precise we can be with interventions. Well, since COVID, we've had more kids fall out of the core. So we need to tighten the core and really work in that core instruction so that we can again get to that precision of intervention. So all of that is a piece of the work, and we did start putting that into place, I would say, after spring break. No, we didn't have all the data back. We could kind of see with our formative pieces what some of the things were that we would need to be doing.
Okay, thanks.
So we're going hard on, not hard, we're going all in on professional learning, coaching, and teacher leadership.
Okay, thank you. Because yeah, you said that fantastic. Because it's kind of like, how do we bolster the core for
Right,
everybody? So
exactly.
get back to core,
Yep.
strengthen that, and then kind of work out from there again.
Yep. And we were in a
So-
really good place with that. I think our teacher teams did great, and we'll get there again. So, but that is where we want to put our focus.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mhm.
Anyone else?
Bring back lots more data. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Latham. All right, we'll move on to our CTE update. Mr. Pettit.
Good evening, board. Thanks for having us. Brought a couple friends along to carry most of the water here. Carol Von Tersch is an instructional coach and used to be a business education teacher at the high school and has been instructional coach since the onset of that program. And she supports and leads a lot of the work that's done in our CTE department. And then Corey Goldsmith is here as well, assistant principal at the high school, who the PLC that he supports primarily is the CTE department as well. So we're gonna have to turn it over to Carol. She's got a lot of information gonna talk about, and then we'll surely take questions when we're finished. So Carol Von Tersch.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. First of all, before I begin, CTE is career and technical ed. That makes up our ag, our industrial technology, business, family, consumer science, and health programs that we offer at Southeast Polk. I think we have the most comprehensive CTE program in a lot of the schools in the state of Iowa, and I think it's one of the best. We have 5 industrial technology teachers, and that's kind of rare. So the goal is tonight just kind of let you know what we've done over the past 5 years. 5 years ago, we came to you and presented to what some of the state initiatives were and requirements for us to continue receiving our federal funded money, state money, and of course the commitment from you as a board, because having a CT program is an expensive program. And then also highlighting kind of where we're going to go the next 5 years. So each of our programs in CTE has to go through a program review. That's an in-depth look at what we teach, how we assess, how we get feedback from our stakeholders, how we involve our community. It's more of a focus look. So when I talk about programs, I've broken down kind of where we're at. So business, family, consumer science, and construction, they've all completed and they were approved on the first go. What that means is they study in depth. We submit it to the Department of Ed. The Department of Ed gives us either, yep, you're approved or you're not. And then we work on those goals over the next 5 years. We completed 3 last year: agricultural, manufacturing, and automotive. And then 1 began the self-study in December. We also have 2 other programs, which are drafting and health sciences, but since those are 100% DMAC, then DMAC took over control of those goals. So a typical, when you look at that, when you look at the number of programs that we have, 9 CTE programs, that's extensive. So we offer a host of courses for our students. Not only do we have to look at the program level, then we have to also do an analysis of our whole entire CTE department. That's more big picture. Lori took part of that as a business member, and I'll kind of talk a little bit about that. So the purpose of this is to show you what were our goals and how are we doing on our goals, celebrate some of our accomplishments, but also kind of highlight to you what are some things that we're going to have to continue to work, because it's going to require some commitment from our administration, our school board, because there are, of course, things that we'll have to look at changing if we're going to meet those goals. So the part where we look at the whole CT, that's what's called a CLNA. And we have to do that every 2 years. That is, the program review is just teachers, administrators. The CLNA is teachers, administrators, students, and we have to bring in business people. And I talked with a lot of CTE people and they struggle to get business people. We had 26 business members participate. It was really a cool morning for us doing that. So, if you look at the presentation that we shared with you, slides 4 through 9 break down every one of those programs and their goals. I'm not going to go through each one of those. If you guys want to look at those, if you ever want to email me, if you want to look at, ask Mr. Pettit, Mr. Goldsmith, about any of those goals, feel free to, but I wanted to kind of highlight some of what I think were some big accomplishments as a result of those goals. And those are what are on this page. We got a lot of feedback from our advisory council. I think we have a very strong advisory council, and that is we reach out to people in our business and industry to give us feedback, to work with us. Example I can think of is Jeff Warwick he works at Principal. He's a part of it, and now he has worked to bring students to Principal to expose them to different things. Lori's a part of it. So we get people from every sector, if it's business, if it's industrial technology, family consumer science, and they work hand in hand with our teachers. So that's one of our big thing. Of course, we started a new course called RISE. It's our work-based learning course, and that continues to evolve. The third bullet on there is probably our most recent, and I think going to become a very prized part of our program review is we are starting our first registered apprenticeship program in the fall in diesel mechanics. O'Halloran International has committed to it. As a result of getting this, we get $25,000 to improve our auto program. And we will have students that will complete our programs, our courses here, and then they will commit, and then O'Halloran will sponsor them. They'll be employed, and then they'll continue their training with 2 years out after. So it's a great opportunity to open up career opportunities for kids who are very interested in that trade. We've had other business people that have reached out to us as a result. And as I'm talking, if anybody has any questions. feel
I was
free.
going to
Yeah.
jump in and say it'd be good if we could grow our own bus mechanics also.
You know, we met with them. Daryl Butcher has been integral in his role with regards to that. And after we met with O'Halloran, now we've had different companies have started to reach out like, hey, how do we get our hand in this? How do we do that? So we're really excited about that. So Dr. Holutnik actually brought it to Mr. Pettit, and then it's kind of all the hands got put together. So that was really cool. And you can see some of the other things, the establishment of courses. It's through this program review that we look at and we say, you know what, we're not teaching shorthand anymore because shorthand isn't a need. How do we change and evolve our courses to meet the demands and needs of our students and to prepare them for the workforce? It's a lot different. The third to bottom bullet can tie a lot to what Joel talked about. CTE doesn't just teach computers or accounting or welding. We look heavily at the data, and we broke down this past year. We took the data by student, and then we pulled those, like, for example, let's say I'll use our welding students, looked at students in our welding, and if they weren't proficient in reading, how do we weave reading into welding? How do we weave math into welding? So those are some of the things that we're trying to do in our department to provide that. So on Wednesdays, as we lead a CTE PLC, I'll demonstrate a show, like a reading strategy, so our kids can get that connection to learning that's not just a reading class or a math class. So that's a big thing. So, but those are our big celebrations. We're proud of that work. So does anybody have any questions for me on that? I'm going to jump over slides 4 through 9, so you can see we had to write key goals. So I gave you the goal, and then I gave you the status of those. And if you want to review those, but I think I've read them enough. I don't need to go through them enough with you guys. So, but on the left, the departments those goals are by. So I thought those were good to share. So this is the next phase of what CT is expected to do. It's called a certified local needs assessment. We receive federal funded Perkins money, and that is very, very helpful to it allows us to buy update our equipment, especially like industrial technology, expensive, things like that. So what we had to do is we had to gather data, present that data to our stakeholders, and then they gave us feedback. And it was on these 6 elements. Like, for example, how do we align what we're teaching in our class to the labor market? We can't be teaching things are out of hand. How do we prepare them? Or how do we provide equity and access to our programs for all students? How do we adapt our curriculum or adapt our place so that students can develop those skills? So we presented all that information, and then we brought in the community members. It was, I thought, Laura, you can share. She took part of it. We had teachers that sat and they presented that information with very eclectic groups of business people, and then they gave us feedback and they rated us. And it was wonderful. I mean, to have people collaborating, we're not living in the walls of our classroom. We just can't do that. So that's our way of reaching out. So, and I did put in about sample evaluation, but I don't think on the PDF the link works. But if you ever want to see it, if you ever want to partake, you are welcome to. We will do that again in 2 years. Here were our big goals. And kind of, you can see where we scored high and where we scored low. And, I'm going to look at the 2 top bullets of the low scores. There's a real concern over our 5 through 8 programming. How are we preparing those kids? And when they get to high school, we have a family and consumer science at the 8th grade level, but we don't have anything in terms of business or industrial technology. When I first came here quite a few years ago, we did, but when budgets and things are there, but that was a goal. So that'll be something that we'll have to look at as we transition. So, so you can look at some of those, like the bottom one is, how do we continually provide that professional development for our teachers? How do we provide them that opportunity to grow? And that's one thing we've committed some Perkins money. We allow every CT teacher the opportunity to spend 1 day a semester where they go and meet with business and industry. And that's been valuable. So, and then of course, we definitely want to talk about our high scores. We offer a lot of programs. We offer a lot of courses. Every kid in a CTE course can participate in a CTSO. That's a career and technical ed student organization that takes their learning outside of the classroom into competitions. And we have DECA, FFA, DECA, FCCLA, and Skills USA. We're, I think, one of the only schools that is not going to have to add those. The state of Iowa is mandating a CTSO in every CTE program by the year 2025. And there's a lot of small school districts that are really going to struggle with that. So, any questions on that? All right. So next 5 years. So after next year, our information solutions program will finish their review. Business will restart. So business will have to go back and say, this is how we met that goal. This is what we did. And then we'll have to reevaluate ourselves. And then we repeat that cycle. And once again, we'll begin that work of looking at our CLNA, but probably the most thing is how do we get better every year. So, and part of it, which leads, then if we get a celebration. And the very final slide is we have accountability. We don't get to just say we're doing these things. So we have to report on these elements. Off to the left, if you see the far left column, it breaks down what we're measured on. The second column, the AY 2021, that was a target that was set by the state. Then the state, the third column in, gives a 90% target. And if you're not at that 90% target, then you're at jeopardy of losing your Perkins funding. The fourth column over, or the third number column, is how Southeast Polk rated. And this is the first time ever we've met all goals. So if you'll look at the academic proficiency in math, it takes kids who have taken 2 or more years in our program. So they'll take the kids in auto that are considered concentrators. They'll pull their ISEFs data. And then if that's a percentage of kids that were proficient that were in the auto program. So that's why we look at math. we look at reading. So whenever we do all of these things to get better, it's so that we too get good measurements. So that was a big celebration for us. So a huge initiative in the Department of Ed is work-based learning. How are you getting kids to experience authentic work-based learning? The registered apprenticeship, the RISE class, our SAE programs that our ag kids participate in, our construction, our nursing program and health. So. Do you have any questions for me? There's a lot of information, so. Thanks for your support. I know our teachers feel very valued. And, you know, I know the core is a big thing, but we look at our population and we look at the needs in the labor market, and we feel we're a very integral part of education at the high school level. At all levels. So. All right.
Before she walks away, I want to give a ton of praise and credit to Carol. She's been leading the CTE department since I came here in '4, and she's a great collaborator, great visionary, got a lot of passion, and knows everything. And I say that, and that's true. I mean, Carol knows a ton. She's had people from other schools that contact her and ask her how to go through these things. People from Ed who contact her and ask her the way to do things. So Carol is an unbelievable resource that we are so fortunate to have here in our district. She kind of tried to retire last year. And we didn't necessarily, stop her from doing that. She chose to say, and I hope she. And that's all.
Thank you.
So Corey
Yes.
doesn't get to speak? He didn't- he didn't.
Yes.
Thanks,
Yep.
Corey.
Thank you. And thank you for being Steve's friend.
Yeah, you did a good job.
All right, we're on to food and nutrition update.
Good evening. I know I'm the only thing that separates adjournment, so I will try and be brief, but also give you a good overview once he gets it all going. Okay, so first off, I am just going to go through a little bit of a review of last year, just keep it brief, a few updates, and then talk about next year, because in our world and everyone's world right now, everything changes and we always get changes too. So first off, just to look at kind of last year, that free and reduced percentage is actually the end of the year. And to tell you the truth, it's not accurate because the DE was really slow at getting us our direct cert information. So I pulled it again for the end of June and it was 34.8. So not much difference, but we just didn't get some of the data from them until into July. And so our free and reduced did go up and potentially it will again next year. They've increased the threshold for people to get either reduced or free status.
Is that an accurate measurement since everybody was free last year? I mean, do you think expect it to be much higher?
Because people still had to fill it out
Okay.
to be able to get fees reduced, their bus fees,
Okay.
that kind of thing. But not as many people did, also because they didn't need it for the meal. So
Right.
it may look different next year too. Potentially, a lot of the people who still did came back, but I'm not sure, we maybe caught some of the new people who needed it because they didn't need it for the meals. So that is where we stood, and that is the K through 12 numbers. It doesn't have preschool in it too. Another thing that you even see in the grocery store right now, just personally, is food shortage. And we had issues with that last year too. Never did students go without food. We always had something. It just wasn't always what was planned. And we didn't always know if it'd show up in the truck. But I foresee that to probably continue. There will be those issues too, but we dealt with that food shortage. I already have started ordering in. I brought in a truckload of some supplies. Our warehouse is full of paper trays right now. I have other stuff coming tomorrow. So just working through that, but that food shortage, we suffered. We had issues with it last year and probably will again, or we will moving forward, but there will always be food. Staffing, we had our staffing was okay. We didn't have a ton of people gone by the end of the year. I think I had 2 or 3 positions open, which is not bad for us. We ended up having a lot of people gone though throughout the year. So I have a decent pool of subs, but we were usually down a few people in every building. At least most days, but we have awesome people and there's ways we can adjust if we're down only 1 or 2, getting past that in some of our, it gets a little bit challenging, but we maneuver things that make it work too. Looking at what we served. So again, with meals being free last year, our numbers went up. It's hard to look at previous data, but if we went back to the last normal-ish school year would be 2018, 2019. We served about 21,000 or 221,000 breakfasts. So we over doubled that last year. Again, with the free lunches, free breakfast meals. Looking at lunch, we were over 942,000 lunches. Looking back at 2018, 2019, we were at 910. There was still some increase, but not as significant as breakfast, which is kind of what I expected because our breakfast numbers are not typically super high. We still serve a decent amount of students. And so looking at that, that kind of brings into looking at next year also is I predict that our numbers will decrease. Our lunch probably not significantly, but our breakfast most likely will too. Because I know a lot of times kids came in for breakfast and it was their second breakfast because they had something at home and then they got a little bit more. So looking at that's what we served in man. We were serving a lot of kids and the staff in the kitchen were working really hard and making sure that we got all those meals served. The other thing that I didn't put on here is equipment shortage. Dan was talking about chips. We have some of the same issues with that. I ordered some pieces of equipment. I just had one installed last week that I ordered in November. And I've ordered stuff that is not projected to come till probably January or February. And so I'm actually going to have to move a few things from places just to cover us until then. But we're finding that there's issues with equipment too. So just another one of those things just happening. But looking at next year, so what is to come, and stop me if you have questions too along the way. We are back to that free, paid, and reduced meals. So that is something that as of right now, we're going forward with. If you remember, was it 2 years ago or not last year? Yeah, 2 years ago, we went back to this as well. And then come September, October, they told us, oh, it was free meals. So, hey, you never know what could happen. It could change again. But for right now, this is what is communicated and what keeps being communicated by the USDA and the DE is that we will be back. Meal applications will be released on the 27th. I waited a little bit. There's some DE communication still coming and a webinar that I wanted to make sure I had everything set before we sent stuff out. But that still gives ample amount of time to get them in and get them processed, especially since we use a computerized system. Another thing for next year is you did approve the meal prices. The DE came out on June 20th to let us know that the adult meal price had to be at least $4.13. So, and 13 is kind of a weird number. So rounded it up to $4.15. So just know that had to be changed, not because I chose or Kevin chose or anyone chose, because the USDA told us we needed to. So also looking at next year is we have new bids. I know I wasn't here for the June meeting and there were some questions about bids. June is when all my bids come and you guys get to look at all of those. We next year will have to have a new prime vendor bid, which means that will be our food and supplies. It's our chemicals as well as our produce. Our 5-year cycle is up this year. And so then we will have to go out and that's a pretty extensive one. That's our biggest bid that we have. And then we'll also have to do a milk bid. We were able to get granted that extension due to COVID for 1 more year. I should have actually gone out for a full bid, a competitive one, but it didn't have to be competitive because of COVID. So a lot of times all of our bids, when we do them, it's for the current year plus 4 extension years. It just kind of helps to have not having to change vendors all the time. We get to know them, but every year those are evaluated based on the pricing they come back to us for the next year and also their service. So it doesn't mean if we have the extensions, we just automatically do it. but it's nice to have that with our vendors. We have a lot of excellent vendors as well. So looking also into next year, kind of the tagline from the USDA is Build Back Better with School Meals. So I attached to the board document, there was a few worksheets that you could see. Those are directly from the USDA about next year and building back better with school meals. So one of those is transitional standards. So we will actually have new standards put into place for the 24-25. They go along with the dietary guidelines for Americans, but they put in some of these transitional standards to get us there. So what that means is there is with milk, we would be able to do a low fat flavored milk. So like a 1% flavored milk. Our vendor doesn't even make that, so we won't be using that one. But we could if we wanted to, and I guess they do that somewhere around in the country because some people wanted it. Also with our sodium targets, we should be down further with our sodium targets, but they've kind of pushed it off. And right now they're allowing us to stay at target 1 with our sodium targets. And then for the following year, we'll have to go down 10% before then the final rule. And then for next year, we also have to go back to whole grains, but they're only making it be 80%. So it's 80% of what I menu and what we serve for the week, not 80% of what's in that item. So 80% of the grains need to be whole grain rich. So again, there will be, the next slide kind of shows the timeline of how this works and what it's going to look like. And then we'll see what we get. So this transitional standards rule came out in February. And then in the fall, they're going to propose a new one. So in a few months, they'll propose new rules. There'll be a comments period. You guys are all welcome to comment. Actually, anyone in the general public is welcome to comment. You can read through them, put comments, kind of what you think of what they are and what they should be. And then there'll be a final rule that'll come in to be in play for the 24-25 school year. So it'll be something that we'll watch out for. I wouldn't expect it to be huge changes, but you never know. The last time there were big changes was in 2012 when all the regulations changed as well. So what do we do now for next year? There was just a bill passed on actually June 25th. It's called the Keep Kids Fed Act of 2022. That was passed to kind of help us in this transition, especially from not having free meals, but also the issues with food supply and that kind of thing. So it's to give us additional support to keep supporting our students. And so one of the things that comes with it is there's an additional 40 cents of reimbursement for lunch and 15 for breakfast to kind of help because food prices are going up and they're going up fast. And so that will help offset some of that as well. There's also an extension of some waivers for the school year. The one that will affect us for next school year is called the flexibility waiver for meal pattern violations. It's one of the ones they put in place for if you weren't able to meet the meal pattern. There were places across the US who couldn't get milk. So if you don't serve milk to your kids, you're in violation of the meal pattern. So it's put in place so that, and if you're in violation, they could come back with fiscal action. So this is put into place. So if you have a violation, something to that extent, you won't have any fiscal action taken towards you. We were lucky here. We didn't really have anything that significant. Now I couldn't get the hamburger or I couldn't get pizza, but I could get food and we could always get milk. So I don't see this being a huge issue for us. Again, we just may not have what was menued on there and I may be finding stuff and we'll have it, but we always have food. We always had milk. We have AU right down the road from us, but they did put that into place. So the things that'll affect us are that reimbursement and that requirement for so that we wouldn't have any fiscal action taken towards us. And this coming year, well, and I should say this coming year, we have an administrative review, but we were supposed to have it the last 3 years and it keeps getting pushed back. So maybe we'll have it, maybe we'll have it next year. You never know what happens right now, but for right now, it's planned to have an administrative review. So once that happens, I'll bring back and share that information to you too. But that is the Department of Education, USDA coming in and reviewing our whole program on how things work. But that is what I have for you. What questions do you guys have for me? What can I help you with?
I would just want to know where we are with free and reduced once you have that number for this school
Sure.
year. That's my main
Yep,
question.
yep. And it usually the accurate number wouldn't be until after our grace period, which is 30 days into the school year.
Right.
Yep, yep. Yeah. I will tell you, I will be emailing out again to help serve Thanksgiving meals. So feel free. It's one of the things, love to have you guys in there. If you're ever doing your building review, stop in the kitchen, see the ladies and gentlemen, and say hi and see all the great work they do. We have a lot of awesome people in our kitchens working very, very hard. So, yeah. Anything else?
Well, thanks for your work and being adaptable. And I'm sure it's frustrating when you can't get the food that you order and you have to change up the menu and try to meet those requirements. So
Yes, and we've done pretty good, and the staff in there is, when it comes, they're like, okay, this is what I get and this is what I go with. Everyone's had to be very flexible, and they, yeah, we couldn't do it without the great people in the kitchen.
And I think the lunch ladies and all of your staff go a long way to making all of our kids feel loved also.
They do. We have great people in there. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. If you guys do have any questions anytime, you know how to reach me, call, email, and I'll get back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Motion approved.
Motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.